minority has discovered a powerful help in influencing the majority to mold the minds of the masses. They find it propaganda.
It's my fourth or fifth visit to Idaho this year. I love Idaho. You know, it's amazing as I'm driving through the streets here of Boise. This feels like a conquered city, though, doesn't it? I mean, you see the gay flags all throughout the city. What is going on in Idaho? And I've been warning for quite some time that the idea pathogen, the social contagion of leftism, it knows no bounds. It will come to red states. It will come to every single nook and cranny and corner. You know, it's just so insulting. I mean, you're driving down the streets of Boise and it's as if you're a conquered country, right? That's what people do when they take over a country. They flip the flags, right? You know, like who's in control of Berlin? And that's how it feels like. It's like, okay, now we're in charge. As if the people of Idaho want that and they tolerate it. It's just bizarre to me. I think we have this misunderstanding that we don't want to be mean to the other side or that we don't want to be called intolerant. Tolerance is not a Christian value. We should not tolerate evil. We should not tolerate children being targeted. And so you have a whole month dedicated to this. Every corporation, every athletic competition, every major influencer, it's all about pride. And I got myself in so much good trouble, which I encourage you all to do, when I tweeted out that pride is a sin on June 1st. You're not allowed to say that. Somebody said the other day, well, Charlie, we're winning because now Major League Baseball got rid of their gay paraphernalia and they went back. And I said, well, that's a good thing. We're making movement, but it's not winning to go back to the logo we grew up with, okay? Let's not try to convince ourselves that is some sort of victory. In some ways, it's actually trying to convince us that even getting back to square one has taken all this effort. But there's something changing, and it's a positive, I have to say. Something has changed, and I think the trans thing, I think the alphabet mafia coming after all of us, I think the rainbow-haired jihadis coming after our children has really kind of changed how we engage here. Because where were we 3 years ago? 3 years ago, we were locked down, we were told to be masked. We were under this pharmaceutical fascism. And then we had, literally 3 years ago, you remember Floydapalooza, right? Where we burned down our country based on a bitter lie from the pit of hell that America is systemically racist. Corporations were pledging hundreds of millions, billions of dollars to fight systemic racism, at the altar of BLM. And so where are we 3 years later? The country's in an awful place. The country's not in a better place, macro. But there is a change, and it's happening finally, where corporations are realizing that they're not completely and totally untouchable. You're actually living through an intentional, I think, sometimes intelligence agency funded operation to make you actually outraged and believe a certain thing you shouldn't believe. From Kyle Rittenhouse to Nicholas Sandmann to January 6th to George Floyd, these situations are designed in a certain way to misrepresent something, prey on your emotions, to make them more powerful. Our reaction to a certain event is where they really get their true power. They're going to try to create a drag Floyd situation in the month of June. Drag queen George Floyd, where somebody acts in a certain way where, they're grooming kids, acting like perverts, and somebody acts in a way they shouldn't, where, you punch a drag queen or something like that. Same exact thing on the New York subway, right? Where it gets totally misrepresented and blown out of proportion. So we should obviously continue to stay peaceful in everything that we do in every way possible. But the reaction is then, it wouldn't be about the fact that they're grooming kids or that they're perverting 7-year-olds or they have tuck-friendly swimwear or they have any of this stuff. No, it would be all about a single instance of, oh my goodness, look at those right-wingers. They can't control themselves. Those are domestic terrorists. You see, they are going so above and beyond. I believe this is part of the program. They almost want us to lose our mind. They need us to act in a certain way. And again, the misrepresentations of what happened on January 6th is a great example of this, right? Where we don't know how many feds were there and Ray-Epps and all that sort of stuff. But instead, they are then able to criminalize an entire American political movement based on a certain circumstance or action. Pride Month has become kind of a bigger deal than Christmas in this country. But it is. It's a secular religious ceremony, right? There's more ceremony, more corporations, more outward evangelism, more zealotry, more influencers that, literally, you go downtown Boise or Hollywood, there's more lead up. There's more celebration, right? It is the new state-run religion, which is really something to think about and pray about and hope for, honestly, forgiveness for. You have a temperament of, okay, live and let live, and that's fine, right? I think that's actually admirable. That means that you don't want to overly police people's personal decisions, because you would never want someone to police your own, except it was a false bargain. We knew that the whole time, right? It's that they don't want their personal decision to be policed, but they're going to police yours, okay? So it's the complete opposite. It's not live and let live, it's live and let us rule. It's the opposite of what you could ever imagine, right? And so it goes through a very simple progression. Matt Walsh came up with this, and he does a great job of articulating. He starts with, okay, you must tolerate it. And you're like, okay, well, I don't want to tolerate it because I don't believe it. I believe marriage is between one man and one woman. And then you must celebrate it, mandatory celebration. Well, I don't want to celebrate it because, like I said, I don't believe in it. And if you don't celebrate it, they're going to oust you and ask you, where is your sticker? Where's your flag? Why are you a bigot? Because you're not celebrating alongside of us. But that's not enough. Then it's mandatory participation. And if not for you, mandatory participation for your kids. I think your temperament is you want to live in the country you grew up in. Same, I do too. I temperamentally, believing marriage is between one man and one woman, it's like, okay, you do you. That country's dead. Now it's all about totalitarian. The T in LGBT stands for totalitarianism and tyranny, which is I am going to make you and make your children go through the certain practices to believe a certain thing. And I say this and people laugh, and I don't mean it as a joke, but it actually is kind of funny. We have the gayest generation in history, right? And that's not happening just because all of a sudden young people feel more comfortable to be gay. It's because this is a lifestyle that actually is considered to come with points and privileges and rewards. That you actually are able to become more important. In fact, you're able to claim some sort of progress on the oppression Olympic ladder. I get a gold medal if I am trans or lesbian or gay or whatever, and that's a social contagion. That is not a condition or a lifestyle choice or a behavioral choice. That is a social contagion that goes to seek converts. In fact, this really fires up a lot of pastors. I say the gay lobby in America right now is much better at winning people for their agenda than most Christians are. You would be shocked at how many good people are afraid to take virtuous and courageous action because they're afraid of being called a racist. And they have weaponized name-calling to put you into a permanent paralysis in such a powerful way, unlike anything we've ever seen. You are not a free citizen of America if you have to look over your shoulder every time you have to voice your opinion. Yeah. Are you speaking freely? And maybe most of you are, right? Or else maybe you wouldn't be here. I'm probably talking to one of you right now. You're like, boy, I work for this local hospital, and if I spoke my mind or if I did something on social media, they would come after me. You're already living in the Soviet Union. It's already there. But you could choose to change it. And I can tell you right now that the most liberating thing you could do for yourself and for your kids and for your community is to say, I'm going to say the truth, the spoken truth, the logos, and whatever they do to me, I don't care. If every single person who agrees with what we're saying does that, the country radically changes overnight. Their power is the power we give them. We disempower them when we say, look, I'm actually going to keep on watching this podcast or this person, even though you tell me that person's a racist. I know they're not. I like what they have to say. I'm going to keep on shopping at this store, even though when you tell me not to do that. I'm going to keep on speaking my mind about every topic. And I'm not going to live under the Orwellian tyranny of political correctness. The Marxist totalitarian despots and tyrants, they are very worried that the American Patriots, this great organization, we're about to leave our cage that they built for us. We're going to voice our opinions regardless of what you do to us. We're not going to pay a tithe to the golden calf of the LGBTQ Mafia. We're not going to do that, okay? We're not going to use your approved language of pronoun usage, or we're not going to resegregate society based on race. We're not going to say that white people are the enemy in our country. In fact, we're going to say there's a war on white people in this country, and it's deliberate, and it's concocted, and it's serious. And if that sort of stuff makes you uncomfortable, then you're already an unfree person. You just haven't noticed it yet. There's two types of tyranny, and I've come to realize this. There's a tyranny that is passed by a legislative body or a corporation, and a tyranny that's going to require protests and elections. And then there's the tyranny that we agree to. And a free people has to first liberate ourselves from the shackles of the tyranny that we have voluntarily agreed to, because we're afraid of losing the comfort of a country club membership or a neighbor. Kids under the trans delusion will come up and they'll say, I think I'm a man and all this. And I refuse to affirm it. I say, no, you're under a torment of a mental issue that I hope you can get treatment so you can get liberated from the torture that you have to put yourself through. You see people say, I'm being unloving. Do you know what's unloving? Unloving would be to affirm a lie and to keep that person to go on a series of decisions and steps where they then mutilate themselves, they go on antidepressants, they then all of a sudden go on chemical castration drugs. That is unloving. We are now going to start from zero and build up with the language, with the decisions, with the behavior that we know to be true, as if the left did not exist at all. Does that make sense? Because so much of what we do is under the paradigm of the rules of the road that we've inherited from a Marxist, postmodern, globalist regime over a couple decades. How often I hear is, well, Charlie, this wouldn't have been controversial 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, or, the fact that 90% of American colleges are teaching men can give birth, right? This is not going to improve. It's not. Right? At that point, you have to say, okay, are we Nineveh or Sodom?